It's funny.
When's your next show?
I don't actually have one planned at the moment. Like just doing like trying to go for two national runs like in 2 years. Like I was just like gonna take a year off, I think. So
You got your card at Universe, right?
yes, last year.
Yeah. Yeah,
How has this time off
She was competing.
been for you?
How has it been for me?
Yeah.
It's been good. I've actually like it was nice to just be able to, I guess, like have some time to focus on other things. And I did some traveling like over the holidays. I actually went to Germany. I have a friend over there, so it's pretty cool to like, be able to have that like freedom where I'm not like constantly worrying about what I'm eating and like, oh, I have to get my workouts in and stuff like that. So
How long have you been
oh,
competing for?
I think I did my first one in 2020. So I think 4 years now, or it's going on five.
And you were always doing wellness, or would you start off as, I guess.
Yeah, I always did wellness. Yeah. So I came in, I want to say wellness was probably around for like 2 or 3 years and then I started competing. So I've always done wellness. Um I did my first show, my first two shows were in Texas and then my third year is when I started like trying to go to nationals and stuff.
Okay. And what drew you to wellness? I mean, that's a very popular, division right now. So just to get a wellness perspective.
Yeah. Well, like a couple things. I actually like started getting into like the whole sport just because I had a friend of mine who she competes in like women's physique. And I was working at a gym at the time, and she came up to me and she was just like, I guess we were like kind of starting to become friends. And she had told me that they had started like a new division and that I would fit the criteria. Like I've always had like a lower body dominant physique. I've always been in sports my whole life. And then I was in sports in college. And so when I started kind of just lifting at the gym, I stopped competing in other things. And she, I guess, had mentioned that, oh, if you like competing and stuff and like you have that nature, then you should try bodybuilding because there's like a new division and it's like could fit my physique, you know?
You were track and field, right? Back in the day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Then
yeah.
lower body dominant for sure. What did you run?
Yeah. I actually ran like longer distance though. So like I did like in college I ran the 1500, the 3K steeplechase. That was like in track and then in cross country it's like universally like a 6K. That's when the division started like every one of the topping like the talking points was that like the division is kind of like has a background of like women who compete in different sports. So like you hear like oh volleyball or soccer or something versus then like maybe like short distance track, but like with like a long distance running, like,
They're usually slender.
our,
Yeah. Long distance are usually
yes,
like, that makes sense.
exactly.
Bikini.
Yeah. Yes, like, yeah, it's like we never lift. The focus is obviously to be like as light in terms of body weight as possible because if you're thinking about carrying that weight over a distance, it's kind of like you want to be as light as possible. So, that's kind of like the physique you typically see with like long distance runners. And like if you look at like marathon runners, like it's usually like a leaner, like smaller person.
So how has been like with cardio in bodybuilding? Have you found that you have to do more cardio now because your body is just so used to it, or not really?
Not really. Actually, mostly because one of the, I guess, downfalls of being in the sport of like cross country and track that I found is that you have to like constantly keep that fitness up. And like if you don't do that and make that a part of your day every day, like your endurance will go away. So it's not like I started like bodybuilding with like an endurance of like a cross country athlete. I feel like probably a year had gone by since I had competed or two. So like most of that endurance, like I was still working out, but like the endurance to run like what I did in college was like not at the peak when I started. So um when it comes to the cardio, like nah, it wasn't like I was like, oh, I have to do 7 miles of like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
like
that that would be horrible. That
Yeah,
that
so
was a good question though, Alex. I like that. That
I mean, I'm
because
just curious. I mean, I know when you build up that aerobic capacity, sometimes it can be difficult. But yeah, I mean, if you were out of it for a little while, also you're carrying more body weight, building muscle. So I know usually on a bulk, it's just cardio is actually easier because you don't have to go too hard to get that heart rate up, and then you get deep into prep, and you're like, oh man, I gotta go to like level 15 now.
yeah, because you actually do feel like, you get to a point where you're like, I could literally do this forever because your endurance is just so good because you're feeling lean, you're feeling fit. And I don't know if you guys have like the Apple thing that tracks stuff like on your phones or whatever. And like, I'm not saying that like that's totally accurate, but you can see like they do have like a cardio fitness app like tracking thing. And you can see like usually if you're like in the depths of prep, like your VO2 max is like pretty the high, like pretty much the best that it's going to be for like, because you're doing all these steps, you're doing all this cardio. So it's just something like interesting, but like I'm not saying that it's the end all be all because Apple has like how do you really track that? You can't really track that on a phone. But I think that there are like markers and I think that things like that show.
Yeah, I usually have my watch there because it's like the easy kind of gauge of the heart rate. That's what I care about, being around 120. Uh, I don't like I don't like to follow it for the calories. I mean, I've used Whoop as well. I don't know if you've heard of Whoop.
Mm-mm.
That's one you can sleep with. It's like you can shower with it too. It looks more like a band. You've probably seen people wear it, but that I find it a little bit more accurate. It just kind of, if anything, it underestimates your calories burned, where the Apple Watch overestimates your calories burned.
Yeah.
But
yeah, like
yeah,
how do you burn like 5,000 calories? Like I was reading some of those apps. Like what's that? Not fitness. It's not Whoop. It's another one. What's the other one?
There's
um,
a Fitbit.
Fitbit. There you
Fitbit.
go. Like Fitbit will automatically say you're burning like 2,000 plus calories when you wake up. And how accurate is that?
I feel like there's no way. Like I even like if you especially when you get into like the depths of like a VO2, like the only way to like actually check your VO2 max is like to do some like type of like cardio fitness test on a treadmill where they like hook you up to a mask and
Mm.
actually like track the amount of like carbon dioxide and like there's like a way. So it's like your phone's not going to do that, like but I think that I don't know what kind of markers it uses, but I think that there is like, if you want visual evidence of your like actual endurance, like as a statistic, it's probably not terrible to like use it as like a general thing, but like there's no way you can use those numbers on a VO2 max on your Apple Watch and be like, yeah, like I'm actually like, you can't use that as a statistic, more as like a gauge, I guess.
I
I
could
don't
tell
know.
you have
Like
a
it's
track and field background just because you were talking about VO2 max. You never hear about
yeah.
bodybuilders talk about VO2 max.
But it's good information. I didn't know this
Oh
myself.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really good
So what's
information.
that like though, the tra being on like track and field and coming over to bodybuilding and you're going from I guess more of like a team aspect and now you're being judged individually. How is that affect on you also as a female, like from a female perspective? Because men treat, things differently.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think like to your point saying that like track and field and like cross country is like a team sport, like it is, but like there's still such an individual aspect to it because like yeah, you're pretty much in cross country, for example, like your team score, how well you do is like dependent on each individual runner and their placings. So like there's still such a like I guess a responsibility on you as an athlete and as a part of that team, like as an individual person, because sometimes you can still advance as an individual even though your team doesn't. So like there's still like that competitive part of like, what like I'm not gonna say this is like, if you're really like the only good person on your team, like you can still go places. But so you still have that responsibility. And I feel like it's about like the same with like I guess a little bit more emphasis on like the individualism for bodybuilding, just because you have to have like that team behind you. Like you and your coach are working together. Like it's not just you. Um, and so like there's still like a team aspect to it, even though like it's really just you on the stage. Like
So it's
he's,
been like
at
an
least
easier transition than it hasn't. It's not like something you weren't used to.
yeah, I feel like especially like from a training aspect, like in running cross country track, like most of my training was really by myself if I wasn't like at school, like with my teammates, you know? So like in the summer months, like I'm still training. So like, you know, there's still a responsibility on my part to get up and do my stuff and like be on track and like do it for me, but also for them. So I guess like the same kind of concept is like with bodybuilding. It's like there's still that like accountability that I have to do my own thing, but also like if you don't, like your coach is gonna know. And so like your team's gonna know like if you don't run, you know, like it's there's still kind of it's very similar in a way. Yeah.
And what do you feel
So
changed the most?
The training styles.
Okay.
Like um it's just a completely different ball game. I mean, like as a runner, like the amount of I guess I honestly think like between the two sports, like bodybuilding is hard. It is really hard for sure. Like in prep is really difficult, but like running is like I think probably one of the most difficult things I've done. Like there is a point where you know you reach like in your runs, it's just it's so painful. So like I guess from a cardio perspective, like the pain that you feel from a cardio workout is different than like a pain that you feel from like a strength building or something. So I guess just like the training styles in general, like that's the
also,
biggest thing
you're
that's
when you
different.
get to a certain level, like you're always pushing it because as you get more fit, you're also trying to get better time. So you're never actually really feeling the benefit of being in better shape. You're just, well, now I'm pushing my time, pushing my time. So I could see why that would be a never-ending cycle of fatigue.
Yeah, but you could say the same thing about bodybuilding. I mean, it's like you should never be satisfied. Like no one's ever going to be happy
Sure.
on stage and be like, "Oh, I'm good. Like this is the best I'm going to look. I'm happy." Like no one's stepping on
Well,
stage and thinking about this because I think that I guess it's important for everybody, but especially women who have this idea of like what is possible and what's not possible. I think that it's like so important because, you know, if you go into something thinking that you're going to look like this physique, like you're not going to look like an Olympian on stage naturally. It's just not, it's not what women biologically have in their favor. Um, like you know so like my first show I did was totally natural. That prep, I'm not gonna lie, was by far the hardest one that I've ever done for two reasons. One, it was my first one, you never really know what to expect, but for two, it was totally natural, and it because of that it took quite a long like way longer it because you know you don't want to push too hard like from a natural perspective because you don't have anything helping you keep and maintain your muscle. So
So
I
you can
guess
burn
like
through muscle and stuff. Yeah.
so like and I had a different coach for that show than all my other ones, but the one that I had worked with, his idea was kind of to I guess go in a way that was like gradual and like slow, so I didn't lose the amount of muscle mass that I had, but in a way I felt like it was even worse. Like I actually prepped for like 6 months. It was like horrible. Like I don't know if that was the best thing to do. I don't really know. I didn't do another natural show after that. The second one was my first time working with a new coach, and that's when we tried some stuff, but it really was like really pretty tame. It wasn't until I tried to like do like a national show that I felt like I started to I guess get more into other things um like Anavar, things like that. So um but like the first one that I did on stuff, I think I I think I did run Anavar. And then by like the third one is when I tried some other things because, you know, it's a national stage. And I guess speaking from like my first time doing nationals, I actually came in kind of like less conditioned than I wanted to be. And so because of that, we had to end up having to, I guess, push a little bit more on some things and take back food. And so it was like the first time that I actually had experience like being more.
And
well,
managing like for females, like I know side effects are more apparent than, those of men. How do you manage that? And what are those conversations with coach like when you feel something's off?
Yeah, I mean that's I feel like so important is to have a coach that you can have that discussion with because um and I actually work with like I work with a PA who gives me some of my stuff. Um yeah, I mean, just like having that discussion with what not only like a health professional, if that's even possible, but also your coach is really important. So he's always really about good about communicating, like, how are we feeling about this? How do we feel about that? Like, he's never came to me and said, like, we're doing XYZ. It was like, how do you feel about doing this, especially like after my first national show and it wasn't what I wanted. He kind of was like, how do you feel about doing this instead? Because this is kind of what we, if you want to look like this, it might have to.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I guess for women specifically, if you were to talking to, let's say, some amateur NBC girls, and they're starting to get to that point where they're approaching the national level, what would be your advice for them if they're trying to decide what to take, and when the right timing is, um, from your perspective?
It's a little bit hard. I feel like it's definitely a conversation for you and your coach to have. Especially if you like, off topic, but there's a very important aspect of like keeping, like finding a good coach who is knowledgeable and also can have that conversation and open with. Um, so I guess like number one, being on the same page as your coach and like being like having someone who you can ask about that and like um kind of give you that advice on like when he thinks that something's ready because like at least with my coach we didn't like he didn't feel like I that was something that I should consider until really I started doing nationals. And I kind of agree with him because I feel like it's kind of a next step. Like I think that if someone's trying to consider doing nationals, I guess my best advice is like one, definitely listen to your coach if hopefully you have someone like they're trustworthy and like knowledgeable and they're not going to push you to do something. So assuming that's there, listen to your coach. But two, I guess be conservative at first, and because everybody responds so differently to things, and you don't want to set somebody up on like a really extreme plan, and like they only need like a fourth of that.
Yeah.
Like see how that works, and then you know the chances, I'm not saying the chances, but like, um, the amount of people who I guess go pro after their first national show, like I don't really know the statistics on that, but like there's room to grow into that and to learn and to do another show at national level and be better. And so like I would just rather, I guess as a female, be more conservative because you don't really want to push something that's like you don't
It's
need.
irreversible. Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
important though, because I do feel like a lot of people, once they finally get to nationals, it's like if they don't get their card, it's a complete failure. When in reality, once you go from regionals to nationals, you're just a rookie again in that new field of level. And it's almost like when you're going from high school to college in a sport, right? Like, okay, you were a senior in high school, good job, but now you're a freshman again. And for some reason, they step in and they feel like, oh, I'm supposed to already be at the level of these seniors. Some of them might be going pro in their sport. And I just think it's a shame that people don't adopt, because there are a lot of athletes in bodybuilding that have played other sports and they should be used to that way of thinking. But then it's like it's so black and white. It's card or bust. And then it's very few people I've spoken to after they step off the national stage where if they didn't win their pro card, I mean they're so bummed out. And I wish I met more people that were like, you know what? I had a great time and I saw some great improvements and I learned a lot. I can't wait to get back after it.
Yeah. I mean, as someone who's done, I did three national shows. So I did two my first year and then one my or first year trying to go nationals. So I did that my third year and then my fourth year is when I turned pro. And I feel like that first show at a national stage, like there's so many levels. Like you said, like you feel like you're like, okay, I've done well at a local level. I feel ready for a national level. And so like then you like restart and then you're like a beginner at the national level. And then like, you're kind of figuring that out. And some people go right off the bat and win their pro card. Like, cool. Like that's awesome. Like, you know, that's great. But I feel like most people, it doesn't necessarily happen like that. And that's okay because you learn so much. I learned way more my first year at nationals than I did like at any other like show. And I think that going in and like taking something and like learning from these people, like it's it's another step. And like you said, you like someone's going pro. So like you're going up against someone who's a pro.
Yeah.
Like And I think having that mindset and like learning from it and like seeing like what did they do right? What did they look like? And actually seeing that for your own eyes, I guess, was a huge thing for me because like you see people on stage like on the Olympia or something, and you're like, you can see them on TV or you can see them on Instagram, and they look like what that looks like is totally different than actually in person.
Yeah.
And so like actually experiencing that is like a huge, I guess, thing to it's something I learned a lot. It's like as soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, this is what I should be seeing like in person because it looks different.
Can you walk us through that universe prep? Like, what was the hardest thing for you physically and mentally?
For the pro card,
Yeah.
um, I guess the hardest thing, probably the last couple weeks. I knew like what conditioning I wanted to bring from like the previous year. I actually got second. That I'll talk
That's,
about that a little bit. That sucked. I'm not gonna
yeah,
lie.
it's a heart.
That
That
was
must be a
really rough.
heartbreak. Yeah.
Second previous year
I got
at
second my
at
previous
Universe.
year. So I went to Universe my first time going to nationals. So I went to Universe, I got sixth. It wasn't great. Came in super unconditioned. Wanted to push really hard, and I felt like I had the size. So I pushed really hard for my conditioning, and I felt I came in like almost too conditioned at that at I went to North Americans and I love that show. Nothing but like great things to say about them. The way they run their production is amazing. I love everything about it. But yeah, top one got their pro card and I got second.
Mm.
So that one hurt a lot after having like had so many improvements from the first to second show. I felt like I came in and I was like, I did everything I could, and I felt like I just like any from what I heard from the judges that time, it was like split. And so it wasn't even like, oh, they had that person as a winner by far. It was like you were close. Yeah. And so like,
Ooh.
okay, cool. So I prepped for like half a year. And like I mean, I know I don't know how like I'm sure you guys have done back-to-back preps, but like I did Universe in July and then I want to say it was like either I want to say like early September or like early August. So like I had to go another like 2 months. And I was like, I mean, I put everything in it. So missing that mark, I was devastated. But I felt like getting that close was like a huge wake up call for me because I knew that I belonged. And so like really coming in, like I had to just work on the things that from my size perspective. And then as long as I could nail that conditioning, I was gonna be good. And I think that so I guess that part made my actual universe prep easier is that I felt like I had the mindset of like I should be here where I didn't before. But definitely the last couple weeks was the hardest for me because like I felt like I hit like a little plateau. I was actually planning on doing junior nats, which is a couple weeks before that. So I felt like I hit this little plateau like 2 weeks before junior nats. And my coach and I kind of decided to like pull back and just like we want to go in and like we want to look the best. And so between junior nats and universe pretty much like got to this like deep part of my like psyche, like where we all get at the end. And it's like, look, if you want to do it, like you have to do it exactly right. Like you can't have like there's no fudging. Like you can't be like, oh, I had like a little bit extra. Like no, like there is literally no tolerance. Like we're hitting the low end of all my food. Like I have like a range of like maybe 10 grams, give or take. And I'm like, no, we are hitting the low end or under. Like being that consistent and like just being like, there is literally no room for error. Definitely was like, I mean, it was like on autopilot at that point. Like it was just like, I'm just getting to the finish line.
We were texting earlier and you were mentioning how, we chose this life, we chose this sport. And I think that's really powerful because there are people that will complain when in fact, and it's like it's a privilege to be able to do what we do if you love it, right? Like no one's making you do it. So I think it goes hand in hand with that approach to that prep where you're not making excuses, you're just buckling down and doing what you said you were gonna do.
Yeah, no, I love that for sure. And I mean, like, we're not all perfect. Like, we can still have that mindset and we're still going to slip up and complain. And when you get that deep, like, it's things are painful and uncomfortable. And like, you're going to complain every now and again. But like, I guess at the end of the day, you have to like kind of check yourself and be like, I can't really, like, yeah, it's not fun, but like, there are parts that aren't fun. But like you're doing this for a bigger reason, I guess, and like you can't really take it out on anybody else.
I mean, that
I
doesn't stop people from
we
doing
can take it
that,
out on
you
our
know.
coach a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Every now and then.
When am I getting my cheat meal? Like, come on.
But that,
Yeah, G has so on our team we have two wellness girls now, right? We have
yeah.
Illy
Yeah.
and then we have Chris's girlfriend, Nicole. It's her first time competing um this summer. So it's exciting that, our team is growing. We have almost a lot of divisions now. We have what, physique, MP, wellness, and classic, right? Anything else?
Yes.
For y'all's team?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yes.
for
yeah, for
G,
the
yeah.
team.
Yeah, G's team. He's gonna be a busy man this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I have the girls competing first. That's why I wanted to get the questions in with you because I like to hear the female perspective. But you said that your prep for the universe, you you did that show and you kind of knew this time that you were going to win. Is that the idea? Like the mindset behind it, you had more, I guess, from already being on that stage before and falling short of your goal the year before. You went in there more confident this time, I'd say.
Yeah. And I guess I don't love the exact phrasing of like, I knew I was going to win. I feel like there's from a national stage, like, I guess I don't know if this is just me or I feel like everybody needs to have this, but like there needs to be such a level of respect for everybody up there because like most people like they deserve to be there and I don't like the idea of like going thinking that you're going to win. I think that there's a huge it's not the best. Like that's not really what this is. Like you never know who's going to show up. Even if you look incredible, there still may be someone better. Because like I said, somebody's going to be a pro up there. So you're going to be competing against somebody who is a pro. So whether that be you and you have a pro physique, but maybe their pro physique is better. I mean, that's just different. Like I don't love that. So I guess I came in, like I said, the better phrasing that I like is that I knew that I belonged there and that I was a contender to win. Um, I think that mindset and going in with that confidence made a huge difference because when you first start out, you're just like a deer in the headlights. You're just like, this is a whole different stage. It's a whole different feeling. Everybody there is good. And so it's intimidating, but knowing when you belong and like that has a lot to do with how well you perform and how well your individual routine looks like and how like there is a confidence to you on stage. And I think the judges can tell.
It's more the hope for the best and expect the worst type of mentality, which is
Prepare for the worst.
yeah, which is interesting because I'll be doing my first, I guess, national show this year. I'm aiming to do Universe as well.
Nice.
Um, so I don't know what to expect, Of course, you have that. But I like that mentality. Whoever gets their pro card, that's a pro. That's who
Yeah.
you're going against.
I never
Mhm.
even thought of that, like that way of thinking about it, of like you're going against pros now. Like that's just the fact. But I will say that the sport is growing so quickly that even now the regional level, you're seeing people that, and part of it is some of these people they're already nationally qualified, but they want to win their overall, or they took a long break, but they've been to like five nationals already. And you'll see a guy that has, six overalls in his career, and now he's going back to regionals just to get his requalification. So it is so hard. You have to prepare
Mhm.
for anything. You never know who you're going to go against, right? Like, I mean, we actually, Chris and I, we met because we were in the same class, same show. So we actually stood against each other competing before we even knew each other, and that's how we all became friends. And it's like, as soon as we saw G,
Oh,
we knew he was going to win the show. It was just lights out, and that wasn't to say like we felt bad or Chris and I felt bad about our preps or what we brought to the stage, but it was more of an appreciation for, hey, like this guy deserves it. He looks the part. Um, and so I think it's important to what your point about respecting the other athletes. Um, and I think the only time to be pissed is if you yourself cut yourself short in prep and
Mhm.
then you only have yourself to blame. But even me myself, like my goal is to get to Amateur Olympia this year. So I'm gonna shoot for around September to get my qualification. and we've talked about this, and I know Chris and G are my biggest supporters, but and they'll say, the improvements are there, it's gonna be great, and you're gonna make it. And I do feel like I'm gonna make it, but I'm also preparing for the worst, right? Like you never know. Like I could have a guy of G's caliber who's already won shows and has been to several national shows, and then hey, I still haven't even got to nationals yet. So even if I bring my best and I look great, I mean, you've seen the overalls at some shows, right? And they look a lot better than some overalls at the other shows. It just depends on who shows up. Sometimes the third guy or girl looks a whole lot better than the person that wins the show next door.
Yeah. Yeah, you really never know who's going to show up. I mean, I won my first overall, and I'll tell you now, like it was like if there a lot of people could have shown up, like it's really about who shows up. I think I deserved it. I mean, it's just like whoever wins is the best one there. And I mean, it's like there's no way to put everybody who's done all the national shows for that year up against each other at once. Like that just it didn't happen. So like if that happened, maybe we'd be looking at different things. But like, if you took like top three from each show, maybe that would be a different story, but it just didn't happen. Like
Also,
whatever happened.
you're in Texas and we're in Florida, so those are two hotbeds, right? Like the shows,
Yeah.
my posing client, he came second and third in his Florida shows in men's physique. He goes out to Vegas and he wins a classic overall, and he came second in physique. And that's not to say that the bodybuilding isn't big in Vegas. It just shows that, hey, I mean, he one of the shows he wouldn't even technically be qualified for nationals down here, and then he's winning an overall at Jan Dory's show. Um, so
Yeah.
it's a mix. But I am interested to hear about your pro experience. Like after all these
Mm.
national shows, you did the Texas Pro last year.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
It's a
A lot of
big one.
big production value, a lot of caliber athletes. How was that?
Um, Again, like, at every next level, you learn so much. And I never went into that show thinking I was gonna be anything. And like, I don't know about you guys, but like, I don't like to look, I'm not gonna look at who's against me. Like, I'm not gonna go on and see like, oh, who signed up? Like, who's like, I'm just not. Like, and there's no way to tell from a national or like an amateur level sometimes on who shows up until the day of.
Pro as you
But
can though.
But pro, they have the lineups. Yeah.
Then they have
yeah.
all the Instagrams tagged.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I guess like my going into that, I was like, I really don't want to know. But I eventually knew, and it was like the day before. And I was like, sick, man. I was like, okay, there were like some seriously good competitors here. Like, obviously, the Texas Pro is always very competitive.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that show to win or anything like that. I guess coming off the last show, my coach is like was like, I want you to do a pro show this year. Already in his mindset, he was like, you're gonna turn pro this year. So I was like, okay, look, if that's really what happens, then
Line it up.
I'm like, if that's really what happens, then I'll do a pro show if two things. One, if I actually like I felt like I needed to win universe. Like I feel like I needed to win my class. I said I'll do a pro show if I can win my class and if the feedback is actually good. So I went into that, did that pro show for those two reasons. But like I guess like obviously those are the best of the best. Like I'm not sure if you guys know who did the Texas Pro this year, but like I mean, um a couple of Olympians were on there for sure. I mean, top three I think were Olympians.
Issa was there?
No, not like top three Olympians,
Oh,
but
okay.
a lot of the Olympians who went to the Olympia. I think Cass Gillis I think was there. Um, there's a German girl from who I think got like pretty high up in the at Olympia. I think she got fifth or something, like top five. I can't remember, but like, there are girls up there who have gone to the Olympia who are placing top two or three in like or top one or two in like a lot of pro shows. So like the top three or four were like, I mean, they looked incredible. And that's not, I wasn't going to win by any means. I had different reasons for doing that show, but it was just another wake up call. Like I said, it's not like a wake up call, but just another learning experience. Like you said, every step up is like a different thing.
So we
Um,
had
yeah, like that Lisa Meiswinkle, I think she placed like fifth or something. She looked incredible.
at the Olympia.
Yeah, I can't remember where. She definitely went to, obviously she went to the Olympia. She won first here,
Oh
but
yeah, I remember
yeah.
her. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what she placed, but she placed really well. And then obviously like Cass Gillis has been a competitor at the Olympia for quite a few years now.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
just
going back
that
to what we were saying
hardness.
earlier, though, every level is different. Like,
Every level's so
you know,
different.
Who
amateur, national, pro, and then it's Olympian. You know, it just keeps going up from there. So, but it's good that you
so
got your feet wet and went into it right away, so you know what to expect going forward.
Yeah, for sure.
what
Like
do
it
you feel
was like,
about how do they critiquing it? Like, so I know wellness, you can't be too conditioned now, right? Um, I think they use Issa as an example, how she kind of has that perfect balance of hardness, but not looking physique. Um, Talk a bit about that. Like, is it hard to balance that? Because for me, if I'm in the mindset of like, I need to get peeled, I need to get conditioned, because in men's physique, we don't need to be, they just want us conditioned, right? We need to be full,
mhm,
but I can just, when I'm doing my cardio, like, I'm just like, my always in my mind is like, I'm burning this fat off. Like, I want to get shredded. But if you're in a division where you have to balance that and then you're
mhm,
doing cardio, like,
mhm.
I would feel like it's in the back of my head. I'm like, am I doing too much?
Yeah.
That must mentally pay a toll a little bit.
It does, but like again, that definitely goes back to your coach. Like your coach has to be like able to tell where that line is and when to push. That's really helpful because I don't know about you guys, but when I get really deep in prep, like I'm a psycho. Like I can't tell what I look like. Like I have no idea. Like I'm not lean enough and then I'm too lean and then I'm not full enough. Like it's like you go off the rails. But it can be difficult because like with wellness, like I said, my show in Pittsburgh, North Americans, I think I came in a little bit too conditioned. Like you don't want to, they say you don't want to be striated in your glutes, but the reality here is when you move, like if you're conditioned, like first of all, people condition differently. So like some people hold fat there, some people don't. But if you condition properly, I feel like you're going to have some striations in your glutes when you move. But they don't want to see striations in a like still pose. Like it's too conditioned. They don't want to see like they want to see separation
Was it this
without
show
being
you're talking about?
yes. So I think I came in too conditioned here. Like that looks a
I
little too
mean,
conditioned for
because
me.
you can see your hamstrings pretty clearly. Like they're
But
definitely
like
coming
from
through.
the glutes, it was just towing the line. I think like it looked good. It was just towing the line a little bit. Um, and they didn't say anything about my conditioning. Actually, Sandy was the head judge here, and Tyler judged also. Tyler really liked the conditioning I brought. Sandy preferred a more softer look. The winner there had a softer look. I prefer the way I came in, but that's like I guess how I'm not saying I look better or deserved it, but I prefer a like a harder look, I think, than like a softer. I
Who
think it
so of the pros, like going up through the ranks, have there been certain pros you look up to in terms of maybe it's their presentation, their physique, of what you strive to look like? I mean, obviously we just had a major upset at last Olympia
Mhm,
with Issa taking it, and we were thrilled for her because she's a Florida local, super nice, really humble, and has worked
Oh,
so hard
yeah.
for her. I mean, honestly, that was I was so pumped for her. And then but then she loses the Arnold, so clearly there's some competition. And then Francielle, I don't think she's going anywhere anytime soon. I think she
mhm.
wants it back. So we know about wellness. We're not going to know as well as you. I'm curious to hear your thought on like the pro circuit. There's I don't think as much drama in the wellness side as there is in the men's physique side.
I don't know, man.
Um,
That seemed pretty
but
dramatic
I don't
post
know.
Olympia.
There's gonna be drama in any division, especially in this kind of sport. But I don't know. I'm curious to hear like who you followed, who you've kind of looked up to as you've now. I mean, now you're a pro with them.
Well, yeah, I am a pro now, but you know, obviously I'm not Olympia. And like I guess a lot of
Yeah.
my
Yeah, yeah.
I guess a lot of what
We're
I
all about positive thinking here. That's we're all manifesting.
right, right. I mean, I'm not gonna say never, but that's just not where I'm at right now. And that's fine. So like I
Yeah.
guess a lot of how I what I will say for this next couple of minutes is like my opinion and it's I'm not a judge and I don't pretend to be a judge. So I'm not saying someone deserves something over someone else or anything like that, but the physiques that I like the most, I actually like the girl who just beat Isa. When she started coming out, I thought she looked, I mean, that's like
Eduardo or something
ideal.
like that.
Yeah, she's,
Pull her
yeah,
up,
what was
Alex,
The
her
please.
name?
Brazilian. Yeah,
Yes.
she's amazing. I think she's the next to be Olympia.
There's something about like, and this is unfortunate also, but like, there's something about her structure that you just can't build almost sometimes. Like, and same thing for Francielle. Like, her
Genetic.
waist is crazy, and if you have a thick waist, it's over. Like, her waist is insane. She looks balanced, which I really love. And like I think her physique is similar to Francielle, but she's got these longer legs, and I really like her physique.
Her glutes are crazy. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
her
mean, her
waist
waist
is
is
tiny.
so tiny.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And they like her because she's pretty conditioned. You can see. I
Yes.
mean, she's what has been the hardest I guess muscle group for you to train or grow or like what do you find to fit the mold of the division? What have you found the most challenging?
Glutes.
Glutes.
I think like I've always had a thicker hamstring and that works in my favor but against me. Um because if you have bigger hamstrings, you need even bigger glutes to like show a difference in that.
Yeah.
I also think that it was probably my least like it was my underdeveloped muscle between like a quad and hamstring, like lower body.
How's your training changed since you've been an amateur and now you're a pro?
Well, since I took obviously some time off, like that training, it's not like I've been going hard. But I can definitely say the training from from an amateur local level to like a national level was like as soon as we made that switch was like we're doing glutes every day. Like um even if you have big glutes, like they're probably not big enough for wellness. Like they want crazy, crazy, like they want glutes. It's the main thing.
Did you see the
As you
girl
remove.
who won in Texas and at Nationals Junior Nats?
No, I didn't.
This girl, I mean, her physique is nuts. I'm trying to find a good picture, but she I don't even know as much about wellness as obviously like men's physique when I'm looking at it, but just seeing her, I was like, wow, it sticks out, especially as an amateur. Now she's obviously a pro. But
Mhm.
again, I mean, you can see the feathering on her quads.
Yeah,
So it's you definitely, I mean, getting that
they
hard
say
balance.
they say don't come too conditioned, but like it's like you almost have to push it a little bit, otherwise you're going to look unconditioned.
I'm
Like
assuming she's probably gonna have to soften up a little bit for the pros.
I think so. Sometimes it's easier, I think, to push conditioning and then pull back rather than like full on coming in unconditioned.
But that brings up a good topic because there's a constant comparison in bodybuilding. How do you deal with, the body image or post-show blues if that's ever hit you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it hits us all. I think it hits us all, but I think that I guess as women it hits sometimes a little bit harder, I guess. And I'm not saying that like I don't know what you guys experience, but like and it's not really fair to say it's worse for women, but just because of the fact that, you know, as soon as you come off a show and start eating, it seems like you blow up, right? I mean, so like it's hard, I guess, coping with that, but I think the more that you do it and the more that you like go through that cycle, like you understand it's a natural part of it and it's definitely not easy, but like as time goes on and you get more removed from like the physique that you had on stage, it helps a little bit.
I think for guys or I'm assuming girls too, if you can fall in love with I mean, maybe if you're doing an aggressive bulk, okay, like there's definitely be times you're not happy with your look, but there are plenty of times in your off season where you have an extra layer of fat, but you can appreciate your physique. And I think part of it takes time because if you're a first year competitor and you're going through your first real bulk or your second real bulk, like every time you compete, you're gonna be that much better. You're starting off with more muscle. Um, I know for myself, this has probably been the first off season where I'm like, I actually am okay with this kind of physique. Well, now that G brought me down, my last coach kind of he got me up to 210 and now I'm down to 194. So I'm happier here. But I think if you could fall in love with that like
The
slightly
process.
like the process or the look of the off season and appreciate, hey, but I have fullness that I wasn't gonna have, in the last 4 weeks of prep, right? So that probably helps. Like it's not just about conditioning, and it's good to see that the judges are coming out now and saying, hey, like this isn't just a conditioning sport. This is a shape sport. This is a fullness sport, right? It's about the look. It's not just who has the best abs. Even though Ali is just cleaning up with his abs, but that's just men's physique. But
What do you guys feel like? I guess I when I think about women's and men's bodybuilding and like the difference in like the two, I feel like it's almost like it's like you guys have less divisions, and so like you have almost more competition within those divisions, where I feel like with women it's like you have bikini, you have wellness, you have
fit
figure,
model
you
now,
have physique, you have bodybuilding, and now you have the new one that's like what do you call it? The
Fit
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 model.
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 fit model. So like it's like when you think about that there's six, or if you want to count fitness, that's seven for women, and you have what
Like four.
classic physique
Yeah,
and bodybuilding. Like
Well,
you're
Alex talked about this yesterday. It was interesting. Like, there's really no entry level
for
to
guys.
for guys because now you've seen the physique guys are getting so big, and you
yes,
know
yeah.
I
there
mean, I
should
don't
be
know if you
like a
saw the junior nats, the men's physique guys at junior nats. You would have thought that was a pro show, honestly, if you were just looking at it, or if I showed anyone of my friends that isn't in bodybuilding, if I had told them that those are amateurs, they would have probably fallen off their chair because, the last call out guys have won several overalls, and it's just so deep now. And what's happening is you have a bottleneck, right? Because there's a lot of amateurs that would beat pros right now. They
Mhm.
just can't get pro because there's only so many cards to hand
Mhm.
out. And that's why you see guys like there's a guy called Ricardo Sanat in Florida. He won his pro card last year and went to Olympia all in the same year. Our friend Brandon Kamloops that was just on a previous episode, his rookie season, he's beating Olympians. And that just shows right now, like if you have multiple rookies coming in and they're shaking things up, that just tells you all you need to know. Another thing to look at is that we have guys winning physique shows and classic. They'll win both divisions in the same show. How crazy would it be if you had a woman's figure competitor also
Mhm.
winning bikini?
Mhm.
And so
It
I'm
doesn't
I'm
make
all
sense.
for the fit model. Like I'm for it. I think that it should be respected. I'm just a little disappointed that they didn't give something for the guys because they if you look back, if you ever felt like Sadiq Hazovic or back in the day, the true board short look, that's just
Mhm.
not a thing anymore. It's bodybuilders in shorts.
I guess I feel like I that's what I've seen, and I'm not like an enthusiast of like men's divisions, but like they it seems like they keep pushing some of those like the size, and it's like I think we're straying from what really was like back in the day. Like if you like it's changed so much, and I honestly think that since again, this is just my opinion. I feel like since Tyler took over, and I know that he's been judging wellness like across the board. Like, I think that it helps because it makes it really consistent. But I think he's making some statements with how he judges. And I think like the same goes with physique. I've seen, or yeah, physique. I feel like he's judged physique at like a lot of the national levels. And he's almost making like statements in terms of like, okay, we're not like this isn't like we're not going with the biggest size anymore. Like this has to be about the shape and like a stream. Like there's like I feel like that he's making kind of more changes based on how he's judging.
You'll see more, I guess, variances in physiques to amateur level, right? There's just going to be a wider spectrum of levels or size. And so it is really hard to give someone a pro card if they're like 20 pounds lighter than the guy had, even if it's not a size, totally a size game, it is hard to kind of reward someone that is that far behind. But then once you get to the pros and everyone is roughly the same size, I think there are people that talk about how, hey, you're judged differently at the pro level than you are at amateurs. And I can kind of see why. Um, it's just that at the pro level, like everyone is relatively the same size. Okay, so now what else we're gonna judge? Well, the shape, the fullness, the conditioning.
Yeah, I could see that.
So yeah, I know you have to go soon, but what are your next plans? I know you don't have anything circled yet, but are we going to see you on stage this year or are we waiting until 2026?
Definitely not this year. Because of the fact that I took some time off, I feel like obviously I probably gained some weight that I didn't love. So, I didn't really do like even a true like building season. And if I want to get back on stage against like some of the pros, definitely have to put on some size. So that's going to be like the next thing I would focus on. So not this year for sure. But we'll see how like things are planning out, what life gives me. Because obviously, unfortunately, life continues whether you bodybuild or not. So, but it would it would be fun, I think. I
And
definitely
your
think it's a
partner
great call.
bodybuilds too, right? He
Yes.
competes? Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like, it was nice to obviously take a step back, but it was even nicer to kind of watch him do it because it's sometimes it's more fun to just watch other people do it and be that support because if you do it yourself for so long, like you may need like a take a step back. So I mean, it was really fun to watch him do it this year.
If you have well, we always ask this to all our guests, but when you hang up your bikini, what's your legacy going to be?
My legacy,
Yeah, people start talking about your name. What would you want to be remembered for?
I guess like for if I wanted to be remembered for anything, like that I guess I didn't give up. I mean, like having that national run the first time not go my way and then pushing really hard to make it go my way and it still got second. Um, Being able to come back and I feel like having that confidence, like that was a big deal for me. I guess when I started, I think a lot of us are kind of like, do we even belong here at all? Like you have questions, like I don't really belong here on this stage. Like, what am I doing? Like you're wondering what you're doing the whole time. You're like, this is crazy. Like, but then as you keep going, like you find your way and you find your like where you belong. And I think that that's it's pretty cool. So like I guess I think I would rather be remembered for someone who like didn't give up and like actually came in and did my best, I guess. Like I mean, I'm not trying to be the best and win the best, but like I want to be good and I'd rather be like I feel like a good role model for people who are trying to be in it than like I don't know, you know?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Any word of advice for the female athlete? Somebody's maybe starting new in the sport or already competing who's trying to reach the level that you're at?
Don't give up and play the long game. Like you got to be patient. I mean, things are not going to happen right off the bat. And when you have feelings of doubt or like you feel like you don't know where you belong, like just push through that and like rely on other people to like help you with that feeling because I think anybody can get there, but it takes work and it takes time. And, you know, do it for the long
Patience.
game, do it carefully and yeah.
The marathon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Steffi.
Stephanie, it's been a pleasure having you on, finally connecting. I know we've followed each other for a while, and we whenever you do step back on stage, we're going to be rooting for you. We wish you all the best of luck, and down the line, maybe season two, we would love to have you back on um, to get your perspective after you go through your next building phase and anything that's changed or not. But yeah, what we're trying to do with this podcast is to really highlight not just, the pros, but also just the athletes that have been grinding and don't get necessarily the coverage that they should. Um, so again, thank you for taking your time. I know you're busy with applying for your schools
Yeah.
and
Well,
everything with work, but it's been a pleasure.
Well, no, I appreciate that. I definitely feel like that's a good thought because a lot of times only the top athletes get like featured or whatever. And I think that there's so much more to that. So I think it's important that y'all are doing that. And I definitely appreciate you having me. And I hope the best for all of y'all because I know you guys have some shows coming up.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you
Steffi.
very much.
we all have shows, so I'm sure we'll see you around. It's a small sport, and yeah, no, you're right. We're trying to highlight everyone here, even the pros we just had on. They haven't really blown up just yet, but they're going to be at the Olympia pretty soon. Um, And so we hope to have more of this, and we have a lot of female listeners too. So we want to make sure you're our very first female guest,
I know.
officially our
I'm so
first female
excited.
guest. So we really want to be able to give that different insight to the girls watching. Whether it's a bikini or wellness or whatnot. It's a it's a male and female sport, and both need to be respected. And I know
Yeah.
to be honest, I get just excited watching the wellness girls go at it. I love Giselle and what she brings to the stage, and all of them, and Issa. So I know Chris knows Giselle. He did a dark sport shoot a while back. So maybe we'll get her on the pod.
Hopefully, we'll see.
We'll see.
Oh, you got to get her on now. Come
Yeah,
on.
Oh, we
yeah.
will.
Come on, coach. It's your time.
Thank you, Stephanie.
All right,
Yeah, thank
Stephanie.
you guys so much.
Okay.
Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.